So at that point, I thought the only reasonable thing to do was to build our own Soapbox Derby wind tunnel.
Oh, Jesus.
All right, welcome back to Champion's Journey. I'm surrounded here by several of our cars that we've built over the years, and a lot of what I'm going to feature on the channel here has to do with building cars and how we build them. We have a very basic shop. It's a two-car garage, basically, full of a bunch of other stuff like Christmas and Halloween decorations and household cleaning products. So there's not a lot of room in there. But nonetheless, we built like 8 cars in there over the last 10 years. And it hasn't held us back. It's one thing I like about Derby is you can do a lot in a normal home shop. And it's kind of like the right size racing for our family. I promised to share with you the good, the bad, and the ugly of Soapbox Derby. And the ugly is what our shop looks like right now, because it is just in the state it was when we left to go to nationals several months ago for a variety of reasons where it hasn't been cleaned up. We've had a family medical thing that took a long time, and so it's been just sitting there. Now we're getting back to working on the cars, thankfully. Today's a big cleaning day, so I'm going to give you a little look at what the shop looked like after an intense session of building to get ready to go to nationals this year. So let's go. So this is it. Yeah, this is a messy shop. Let me tell the story about leading up to going to the national championships this year. This was 2019 was the first year of the Legacy division. We're going to have another video or two about Legacy division and the building of our car, the Katana. It was a really intense build. Ronan and I were out here until 2, 3 in the morning several nights putting on carbon fiber on the body. I had never done a lot of this type of building we had in this car, so we were feeling our way out. We built our own axle mounts. We did everything from bottoms up, and it came down to the wire getting it done. In hindsight, we started too late. We started in February and had to be rolling out of here in late June for the races, and actually it was like March when we started, and so we just didn't give ourselves enough time for the amount of build, and we had some racing in amongst there too. We had a weekend down in Salem, Oregon. But the several days leading up to the race, probably the most intense series of all-nighters that I've ever been part of, and that's including anything in my career, anything in college. I think I went something like 72 hours with something like 5 hours of sleep. So everything out here, I was literally like painting parts of the car. We were working on the airfoils. We were pulling everything together, and then getting a trailer pack with 4 cars, our 3 for Ronan and my niece Bella's stock car up on the rack, and 1 car up on the roof of our SUV. So it was crazy. This is what the shop looks like after one of these sessions. I mean, I'm going to be real. I like to keep the shop neat normally, but there's no time to clean when you're working, trying to against the clock. We were planning to leave, I think it was like Wednesday morning at 10 in the morning, get on the road, 9, 10 in the morning, or maybe it was Tuesday. I ended up not having the car ready. I was still, we're trying to get the airfoils done. Can't race a car like this without airfoils. You're going to be 2 car lengths behind your competitors, so it was like it had to be done. The work had to be done here in the shop because there was stuff that you couldn't do on the road. And just worked like 24 hours basically straight.
through and then packed the last of the trailer and got on the road. And this is exactly as the shop lied, even though this is months later. We had a long episode in the family here, medical episode with my wife, where we haven't really done anything associated with Derby in several months. Here it's fall, getting back into working on the cars. We got races coming up in Las Vegas and big one in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And this is what the shop looks like. So today's job is cleaning the shop and getting ready to start working on the cars again. I'm going to show you a couple of things, as long as I got them here before I clean them up or take them apart, because they might be interesting later in our story. All right, first off is this big giant box here. No, I did not ship a car in this box, but I might have been able to. A little wimpy for that. This is a cover that we built for Ronan's legacy car. It's a hot box, actually. It's a box that fit over the table that we built the car on. It was a rotisserie table that allowed us to turn the car while we were working on it, which was really awesome, easy to do, and well worth the time. But this fit over the car when it was on the table, so it has these this slot in the back here that would fit over the part that rotated. And what's inside of here, inside of these four sheet metal tubes, are 4 200-watt light bulbs. So there you can kind of maybe see the wiring in here. And then there's a thermocouple right here that goes to a temperature controller. It was about $30 on Amazon. And you can set the digital temperature to any temperature range you want, and it'll turn the lights on and off. And so we used this when we were first laying up the carbon fiber on the body. The resin system that we used gets a significant amount of strength and stiffness improvement if you post-cure it. So by heating it to about 140 or 150 degrees for something like 12 or 14 hours after you lay up the resin, you'll end up with a car that's like about 50% stiffer than one that was just hardened at room temperature. You have to have at a minimum like a 70-degree temperature to work with the stuff. But by getting it up to 130 to 150 type degrees, in that range, you get significantly more. They call it cross-linking of the molecules. Just makes the resin stronger, and you've got this window when it's first hardening that can be done over the first like 24, 48 hours. If you don't post-cure during that window, you've lost the chance to really get that strong cross-linking of the molecules. So this box would go over the car. We would set the temperature range. The light bulbs would come on. It would heat the inside of the box. I actually found it to get it more temperature, we'd lay blankets and towels over the top, and it would get up to about 100 and maybe 40, 50 degrees inside the box, and could do it safely, and was really careful for fire purposes, making sure that nothing was getting too hot. That's why the sheet metal's around the lights, and tried to make sure that I wasn't even scorching the wood or anything like that. I'm always hypersensitive about anything that could cause a fire in the garage, so I was really careful about that. It worked really great, and we found double use for it when we went to paint the car. We had the box here, and so we painted it on top of the same table, and Ronan and I were able to just lift the box over the top of the car and then cure our paint. And so instead of waiting like 24 to 48 hours till the paint wasn't too soft to touch, you could just post-cure it for like an hour, and the paint would be hard as a rock. So it was pretty cool. But it's a little bit bulky to keep around here. As you can tell, I'm short on shop space, so it's going to get taken apart today. We'll have all the pieces, if they ever want to put it together for another car or something. I'll just keep the sheet stock stored flat until I decide to use it for something else. But all right, here's our temporary work table. And as you can tell, we're so short on space in the garage here that it's actually kind of built over the top of a bunch of other stuff that I'm storing here. And it's just a couple of sawhorses supporting a 4x8 sheet of plywood. When we started to work on the Legacy car, we knew we were going to need to be able to roll out fabric and cut it. So this was all clean at the time. And you can kind of see the fiberglass and the carbon fiber on a rack back here with pieces of pipe going through them so that we could unroll the fabric. It was really important when we were laying out the pieces of fabric to make the body that we have a big area. In fact, I think when I was working on it, I extended the table even another foot. So we had a place we could lay down a straight edge and use a roll cutter to roll along, like a pizza cutter kind of, to roll along the fabric and cut it. In fact, here it is right here, little roll cutter. And anyway, as the table stayed up while we were building the car, and that's why it's covered with so much crap. I did little pieces of tubing and little jigs and glue and scales and gosh knows what, a whole bunch of junk here. And again, this is kind of just, hey, this is a reality when you're building and you're working up against a deadline. Things end up getting kind of messy in my shop. I know there are people who work neater than I do, but this is just the way we roll. But hey, while we're filming the shop here, I thought I would show you my crazy little wall of inspiration, I call it. So these are little sayings or notes to myself that I've taken over the years that try to get my head in the right place for working on whatever project I happen to have. So they're not really in any order. Maybe I'll go with the oldest one. It's all faded. It says, by the yard it's hard, and by the inch it's a cinch. I wrote that out years ago when I was working on restoring an old 1968 Mercedes, a project, by the way, which still isn't done. And we were also getting ready to build our house. And so, these are huge projects that take years, and they can be very daunting if you don't break it down. And so I always use that, by the inch it's a cinch, by the yard it's a hard, by the inch it's a cinch. Means break your big projects down into little bite-sized chunks and then work them one at a time, and pretty soon you can eat the elephant one bite at a time, as they say. One of the newer ones I got there, I put commitment plus discipline. So I think I wrote that a year or two ago when we were starting the Legacy project, which was not only just inventing or building a new car, it was inventing a whole new division of soapbox derby, something that's only happened maybe half a dozen or 8 times in the history of the sport. Had to start with a vision there and really convince people that this is something worth doing, get a group together, write the rules, work the politics of getting it accepted, showing everybody the value of doing this new division, and then rolling it out, getting public support behind it. And then, we literally got hundreds and hundreds of feedback comments, tried to incorporate those into the concept, build it out into rules, do a PR campaign to release the rules of social media, etc. And then, hey, all of a sudden we got a new division about a year ago here in October of 2018. We're going to be racing summer 2019, so now it's starting to build a car. So took a lot of commitment of wanting to do it, but it also took disciplined effort to make that happen, to see it through, and to try to, anyone can have kind of a vision, but if you don't have the discipline to actually follow through with your vision, not going to amount to a whole lot. Get on with it. Oh man, so that's me. I will be first to admit I struggle with procrastination at times, and sometimes just not procrastination, but taking too long to do things. I really enjoy the process of working in the shop or on my projects, or even at my workplace. I really enjoy what I do, but sometimes I enjoy it too much and I really kind of go too deep into it. So this is just about getting on with it, getting work done. This is a statement or a quote from Marilyn Monroe from my daughter, just about beauty and genius. The Ace of Spades is a death card. It says days are not for wasting on there, and that is something I put up when I had a cancer scare about 5 years ago and wasn't sure if I would be with you here today. It reminds me every day that our time on earth is limited. Days are not for wasting, they're for getting things done. Fit and focused. Fit and focused is kind of another thing I put up there a few years ago. If I don't have my health, I can't do what I want to do, and so I need to be fit. And if I'm not focused, meaning where I'm working on the most important things, I'll tend to get sidetracked. So I just remind myself, remain fit and focused. This was Rough World Concept is Raoul Begraff is a gentleman named Nakai-san from Japan, and he builds Porsche 911s that are kind of tricked out, racism. They're street. They're kind of controversial because they're not anything like a vintage restoration. They are definitely very custom and unique. And he does it fast. And some people say that to a fault, but I think he does a good job. And he has these videos that are very popular on YouTube about the builds he does. And he's built a really cool little niche. He travels around the world building these Porsches and for people. And his business or his philosophy is called Rough World Concept, and it's like about making something good enough for what it needs to be, but not better than that, and doing it fast enough that you can actually that it gets out there quickly, and you can do something with it. You're not spending years and years and years on something that you can do quicker. So it's about doing a good job, but in a timely fashion. And I put that up when we were starting on our legacy, just because I knew if I got down in the weeds and got stuck, we weren't going to have a car race come July 2019. And so I would look at that and tell myself, time to rough world this, Rich, and just get Ronan and I moving on whatever it was. And then the last thing here is just the Katana. It was the first time we thought of the name of the car, and we stuck it on there just to see how it would look on his legacy car. Alright, here we've got just the last little super messy area of the garage. We've got the temporary workbench, temporary being a relative term since it's been up here for about 10 years. Just a piece of plywood on some sawhorses. It's where I kind of keep the derby spare parts, paint supplies. I clean out my paint guns here. Got a bunch of miscellaneous junk. I got glues here. Nuts and bolts from putting the car together. Bunch of tools just thrown out here as we were trying to get things going. Bunch of derby weights. I got my hydraulic press there that's useful for a bunch of things. Behind me is, you can probably see it because the light's not good in here right now, but is the wind tunnel, and that'll be the subject of another video. Those that race with us know I built a wind tunnel with the kids a few years ago, and it's not been used as much as I thought it would be, but it has been a fun project, and I'll share a whole video probably around how it works, and it's kind of a fun project. Allows us to test the aerodynamics of a full-size soapbox derby car with wind blowing over at about 25-30 miles an hour. So anyway, more of the messy shop, just sharing with you good, the bad, and the ugly. The shop got totally like a bomb went off in here as we're getting ready to go to nationals, and this is the big cleaning day.
And so like that, voila, we've got a clean shop. It took a little bit longer than a day. Sharp-eyed viewers will note that I started working on this video back before we went to Las Vegas and Chattanooga in the November time frame, and here we are the first week of February. So what all happened in between there? Did a lot of work on the cars, did some videos, we had the holidays with the family, some work with the NDR and All-American and local race organizations. A lot going on, but we've now got the shop back to the normal level of what I would describe as organized chaos that like to operate in here. And this is where you guys come in. We've got ideas for our next videos that we're going to shoot here in the shop. Couple options. One is a two-part series about how we built our legacy car. We took hundreds of photos and some video and things last year and would like to share that with those who are thinking of building one or are building one or just interested. Another option would be around a setup video on spindling, crossbind, weight distribution, kingpins, that sort of thing. Let us know in the comments below which you would like to be find more interesting, and we'll try and do them in the order that you guys let us know. We're going to do all of them eventually, and we've got a bunch more videos lined up as well, but want to get your feedback on that. Other than that, I think that's about it for today. Sayonara.